Hello everyone, my name is Barbara and I would like to welcome you all to our latest Knowledge webinar episode. In this week's episode, Introduction to Artlantis 6. Join us to learn about the latest version of Artlantis, which boasts its own built-in physical engine, emphasizing physical rendering quality, precision, material accuracy, and energy consumption. Let me tell you a little bit about today's presenter. Trained as an architect, Ildiko Szabo has been a member of the Abvent team since 2001. Over the year, Ildiko has followed the evolution of Artlantis closely and has acquired vast experience in architectural visualization in general. Before we get going, here's an overview of what we do at Knowledge. Knowledge is one of the largest online stores for design software. We offer a huge assortment of software solutions that cater to virtually every designer's need. Put us to the test and come visit our webpage at knowledge.com. And for more daily software news and limited time promotions, pay a visit to the Knowledge blog and follow us on Facebook, Google+, and Twitter, where you can find the latest special new releases, everything you need to know. It's right there on our social media or on our blog. Coming up next week, Rhino with V-Ray, engagement ring, prototype, and render. In this webinar, our presenter, Maya Holzman, will demonstrate the creation of a traditional engagement suite from model to export to render. Last but not least, today's webinar is free and is being recorded live. So if you want to rewatch this or any webinar episode in our collection, just head on over to Knowledge's YouTube or Vimeo channels. And now I'm going to pass the baton to Ildiko, and she will take over, giving you the much anticipated presentation on the new and improved Artlantis 6. Take it away, Ildiko.
Very well. Okay. Can you hear my voice? Can you see my mouse, my screen?
Looking great.
I'm ready to start. Fine, thank you. So welcome to this presentation. I'm happy to present you Artlantis 6, which in fact continues the revolution started by version 5. Version 5 already reorganized the interface of Artlantis and enhanced very much the preview window. So we can do now more things right in the preview, and now Artlantis 6 integrates a brand new rendering engine behind this interface, a physically correct engine that works on energy conservation. So here are the main parts of the engine. It works on irradiance, and based on this engine we can deduce a lot of new features, functions I will present you during this presentation. So what is the meaning of energy conservation? Just an idea about the way this engine works. I have a scene in the preview window which is lit by the sun. And the sun rays, when they bounce on a surface. In a moment of the rebounce, we have this energy conservation phenomenon, because none of the pixels of the scene will be brighter than it could actually be given the amount of energy that hits it. So with the other words, we are calculating, Artlantis is calculating correctly the energy circulating in a scene, and as a result our scene will look very real compared to what we had previously. Today we already know on the market some applications which provide physically correct presentations. They are quite difficult to set and time demanding in terms of calculation, and they are focusing mostly on professional like graphic artists. But the Artlantis users come from other professions, so the simplicity of Artlantis should be kept. And the revolution now, the second part of this revolution, is about the capacity of Artlantis to integrate behind this easy-to-use interface a physically correct engine and continue to keep the real-time preview window a real-time window, which is consistent with the final rendering. So a new engine, of course, will mean new rendering parameters. And let me highlight a little bit. I think it is worth to check out the dialog for the rendering parameters, where of course I can set the size of my future rendering, where I can set the anti-aliasing, which is brand new, so that's also was reworked completely. And there are only 5 settings which manage the engine, the behavior of the engine. And if somebody is not comfortable with these sliders because he's new to Artlantis or he's new to this engine behaviors, then I advise to use the presets. There are 2 groups of presets. For this scene, of course, I will choose an exterior. So the first group manages the lights, and the second one is about the quality. If I go for a medium, then Artlantis will set an optimum value for the quality of the image and calculation time. If I go for a speed, then or I can go for a quality, and then the sliders will be reorganized automatically in order to have the best quality possible. So in a moment the scene, these parameters were accepted, the scene is refreshed in global illumination, and we can rely on what we see in this real-time preview. This real-time preview can be displayed in OpenGL as well. So this is also a novelty of Artlantis 6 because sometimes we would like to freeze the lighting mode of a scene. And this can be managed very easily. I can choose only to freeze this lighting mode whenever the camera is moving. So I'm just doing now, you see, I'm turning the camera, moving the camera, and the lighting was taken back, stepped back to this global OpenGL mode. And when I release the camera mouse, then everything is recalculated in global illumination. So this is the purpose of this OpenGL, to go faster, and I can even freeze completely the lighting of the scene for OpenGL display mode whenever I'm setting cameras or I want to go faster by because I'm placing objects and furnishing something, and that's also a very good way to do that. The Artlantis physical engine also has a companion, let's say, second engine, which is called the white model. So how does it work? A scene is set with shaders, color shaders, different textures, simulating the materials. But I can change them with only one click, and back to the parameters of the rendering engine, because here, next the physical engine rolling down this little list, I can choose a white model. This is an optional engine, and in a moment it was chosen, okay? The scene was changed, and all the color shader were changed for something, a white shader. Exception are those shaders which have transparency. Of course, glass won't change for the white shader. They will keep the transparency, will keep the reflectiveness, the colors. The same will do the light. We will continue to have the same coloring, the same brightness for the light in the same scene. It's very important to note that in Artlantis, such an option, such a parameter, such a setting will be applied for a specific camera. It won't affect the rest of the scenes. And you see the color shader was kept for the rest. So the thumbnails from the drawer for the camera views will show the appearance of these cameras. So only this was changed for a white model. So inside of the same file, I can organize a lot of presentations with Artlantis, and one of them could be the white model. The next step, and still a possibility that belongs to this new engine, is to enhance my presentation with a kind of virtual shadow, which is called the Ambient Occlusion. And I will use a white model mode, this scene, the same, because it's more spectacular, and you will better understand and faster get the point what is the ambient occlusion about. This can be set in the rendering parameters. I reopen it. You see, we spoke about these 5 parameters for the engine. The rest are additional features, possibilities, and here is the ambient occlusion, which is one click. I activate it. I can set the size in centimeters. I can set the intensity, okay, and I need to ask a refreshment of the preview because this ambient occlusion, this virtual shadow will be applied as an extra filter at the end after the refreshment was done. And here we are. Already will appear some reliefs on a facade, some more detail will be enhanced and highlighted through this shadow. I can even come back to change something to it, to reduce the size, for example, and immediately the scene will be refreshed. I'm working in real time now. Decrease the intensity, so I'm trying to find something realistic, credible. So this is the virtual shadow about, which will put in evidence small details of a facade. And this ambient occlusion can be set for scenes with color shaders as well. The white model will also benefit a lot of this, but we can use it for other scenes as well. White balance. It's another feature which belongs to the new engine, and in fact is possible because this new engine. But before highlighting how the white balance works, let me introduce you the 2 calculation methods Artlantis uses to deal with the light. One of them is the exposure. When we are in exposure mode, there is an automatic calculation of the light to have the most equilibrated scenes in terms of lighting. So Artlantis will measure the source surface, will decide which is the darkest part of the scene and which is the brightest part, and will manage to have the most tones possible, the more saturated colors, and an automatic adjustment of the light will happen whenever we deal with exposure. It's very easy to set it either numerically, either we have a slider for it. And then we can switch to the second method, which is about ISO and shutter speed. That can be set also through a slider. So the ISO is the sensitivity of the camera, while the shutter speed is about the time while an aperture stays exposed to light. So that could be familiar from photography, of course, and they can be set with the same ease, either numerically, either through a slider. If I switch back to exposure, you may note a color overlay, a kind of yellowish tone on the whole surface. This is because the exposure mode deals better with the colors. It takes into account the color temperature as well of the light source, which refers of the relative warmth or coolness of the white light. In addition, we have here a scene with a yellowish parquet that produces a color bleeding as well. And this is a phenomenon, in fact, we may note from reality. So from a very bright outside, we enter in a low-lit interior. So all of a sudden might seem that there is a color overlay, but our eye is very fast and very good in correcting all this. So we might not even realize. It will decide which should behave white, which surface, which part, and adjust accordingly the rest of the colors. In digital imagery, we cannot have this automatism. We do not have it. So we need an extra function, and this is called the white balance. So let me open again the rendering parameters and simply check the white balance is one checkbox. Now we are in automatic mode. And this moment, Artlantis will decide which pixel should behave white. I can also adjust it manually. So let me uncheck now the white balance again. Let's go back to the initial bit yellowish scene. Just take the picker and let me point over a pixel that should behave white. So now I'm deciding and then activating the white balance again. The scene will be refreshed, and Artlantis won't recolor the pixels. It will just adjust the coloring of the neighboring pixels in a way to sense the whiteness correctly. Okay, so this is the white balance about. Physical preview, because with the real-time preview, we can even make appear the real aspect of materials. So let me get a bit further from the scene to give you an idea about these metallic railing. So this is the scene about. It's a glossy material, and I will switch to the shader inspector and detect the surface of this metallic railing. Let's go back to the initial scene, initial camera position, because we are now very interested how Artlantis preview can display this glossiness. This is a quite complex aspect of a material. And as you see, there are some custom settings for the shininess, which now is a very real slider, which at every value will change something to the material aspect. So all those of you knowing Artlantis 5 know that we generally had big jumps in the shininess slider, which is not the case today. For reflection, we have real 3D reflections in Artlantis 6. Just a note, an additional note, I would like to draw your attention to the simplicity of the parameters for materials, the shader inspector. This is very similar to what we had in version 5 and previous versions of Artlantis. So even with a new engine, Artlantis continues the simplicity for parameters, for materials, to keep them few, but offering a high quality behind. So I was speaking about reflection, 3D reflections and shininess and the glossy material, which is should appear in the preview. The preview generally works in a fast mode. What does it mean? It means that it shortcuts some calculations. So whenever it displays such a railing, metallic railing, instead of 3D reflections, it will go fast and say, okay, I apply a 2D reflection on it. It might seem even shinier here in the preview. So therefore, we need to make Artlantis to recalculate, to refresh this preview. And then, when the refreshment was done, we will have the real aspect of materials. So now with the physical engine, if a material is set correctly in every lighting mode, will have a correct aspect. And now we have the real 3D reflection aspect of this material. You may feel a bit noisy, this image. Of course, it's just a preview. Don't forget, we are previewing what we will have in the final rendering. So this is the preview, and in the final rendering, of course, we will have a more accurate calculation of the image that will take off this noisy part. Another big feature and improvement compared to the previous version is the possibility to use an HDR image completely as a background and in all its details. So let's go for a scene here. Back to the perspective inspector. and deactivate every light for the scene, because I would like to use an HDR image for the lighting. So I deactivate the sun. No sun at all. The background turns white, and I can go to search for an HDR image. Now, here I have one. Okay, and let's open it. In a moment, the lighting of the HDR is active. The scene is lit by this HDR, and this is what we had in version 5. So now, regardless the brightness of a pixel, the color of the pixel, Artlantis calculates a kind of flat rate for the lighting all over the scene. And now in version 6, I will improve this, and I will extract the maximum information from each pixel by checking the enhanced background function in parameter dialog. Okay, I need to make a new refreshment of the preview, and you see the preview is recalculated very quickly, and immediately the scene will change. Parts of the surface will become brighter because more light is casted by that part of the background, or less bright will be if it's lit by the darker side of the background. The same, we will start to have some shadows, some radiosity shadows here and there, depending if you can take a look here in this part of the building. So the brightness of the pixel now is taken into account together with the color of the pixel, and I will show you very nice examples at the end how nice images we can achieve with this beautiful capacity of Artlantis to use the HDR completely. We should speak about artificial lights as well, because this engine deals differently with lights, and here is another big novelty of Artlantis is to use unit for light power. Now the light can be set in lumens, which means a very accurate scenes and a higher control of the lighting of our whole scene. In the rest, the parameters are very similar to what we had previously. We can manage the color, the angle, the shadow, the light cone, the different aspects, and we can also choose a projection pattern. Reopening the projection pattern, I notice IES. So I can add an IES file to my I assign an IES file to my artificial light. So let me go and choose an IES file. I've downloaded from the internet, because most of the lamp producers and providers will also make available these IES files, and these files are very specific because they are accumulating information about the physical properties of a lamp and make it all ready to be used in 3D softwares. So if I choose this projection pattern, and you see it's already different compared to the neighbor light, will be already applied. So if I use a physical lamp that exists in one of the shops, I download this IES light, this information about its emission pattern, I can assign it to it, and I can produce even more realistic images. Besides this, Artlantis' strategy is to keep things flexible, so I can still change the power of the light. I can change the angle. So if something I would like to reset or reorganize, remanage something, then I can do that and continue to change the color. So all these can be changed even after an IES file was added to my scene. So these are the big novelties for light, and even neon shaders can be set with lumens. So this specific shader that emits light can be controlled in terms of light power as well. So let me go for the next novelty, highlight, and from now on I'm speaking mostly of productivity tools, let's say. The first one is about how we set materials on object instances. This was changed compared to what we have in the previous version, based on users' request, because they found it a bit difficult to deal with, to reorganize materials on instances. So let me show the new mode, how to do that. So I open catalog and look for some furniture here, just to add to my scene. I take this yellow chair, one chair here, and I go to change its shader. Look for the shader of the chair, go for something pink. So the first instance dragged into the scene got a different shader. That means from now on, every instance will get the same material, and shader will be applied, so I do not have to care to change afterwards for the next ones. They will get the same shader as the first one. They are in a way grouped, so if I come back and change any of the material, all instances will get this material. It's very easy to deal with them. They are in a way grouped in this regard. I can also detach, because sometimes I would like to have a specific color only to one instance. Then I can do that, of course. I go back into my object inspector and right click. That's a contextual menu. Use independent material. So back to the shaders. Check the material, and then it will get an independent material. And I can play with this kind of grouping, ungrouping them, because I can say right click again, apply materials to all same instances. So all of them can be turned on the same color, same material. It's very easy. And I even can come back to the initial reset to catalog material, and all of them will turn and get the default material, default setting. So this is the way we are setting actually shaders for instances, which is more user-friendly, let's say. The next productivity tool is something very funny. I mean, I'm sure you will enjoy it very much. It's called Laser. And what is about? The question was always, how can I put a frame on a wall, for example, at exactly 1 meter from the floor? And now the laser will help us to do that. It can be activated in the perspective inspector. Just a checkbox and open the dialog. 2 things to set. Select the surface of reference. I want 1 meter from the floor, so the floor should be used as a reference. Enter the distance to the surface. 1 meter. I said, okay. It means that this laser line will be lifted, and then I can go, let's go for a frame. Here is a frame. Good. Drag and drop it on a wall. And because in version 5 already we can use one of the border lines of such an object, and while holding down the shift key I can detect this laser line, and I can use it as a snap line. So now I can be really sure that the frame was placed at 1 meter high. I can even use any edge of my geometry for the laser. So let me reposition the laser line, and I will say, okay, the reference file changes because I would like to align something to the frame. And then I take the pointer and detect the edge of my frame. You see, the laser line was moved already. So I'm ready to check. Take another frame, drag and drop it, and while I'm in the object inspector, I can grab the blur, hold down the Shift key, and detect the laser line here. And now I'm really aligned with the edge of the previous frame. The laser has its own icon, so I can make it disappear at any moment. I don't need to go back to the perspective inspector. I can activate, deactivate it very simply. So this is a laser about. The next feature is something called drop-drop, and also ease our work whenever we want to quickly furnish something randomly with a selected selection of objects. So here is an example, a courtyard, and we would like to furnish it with some bushes. Then I need to make a kind of selection what kind of plants I would like to use. So into my catalog, I will make a selection, let's say this one, and this one, and this one, and let's use something that's higher, and this one. Make a right click on all these, add to a selection. The catalog got a new category, which is about selected things and already used things in my scene. And here I can refine as a subcategory my new selection. Then I can turn on the drop-drop function. Here is this hand icon, and all I have to do is click in the preview, and Artlantis will take randomly from my selection one of the plants, and if I'm lucky, they will go nicely and furnish all this part of the courtyard. That can be used with any kind of 3D object, of course. And I can even make a selection of shaders. Let me do that. And randomly click. So how can I use the shader selection with this drop-drop function? 1, 3. New selection. Refine my new selection in the categories. And let me get closer in to this building site. Because let's say I would like to check out some shaders, how they will look like. So drop again. I just simply click on the surface, and this selection of shaders will be applied randomly on this building. Okay, so this is another way how to use this drop function. Matte shadow. This is another shadow, a very specific shader, matte shadow shader, which is used first of all by graphic artists, they say. Let me show you the way they use it and the purpose of this matte shadow shader. I'm sure everybody will use it, not only graphic artists. So I have a scene here with a car set on a plane. It's a very simple scene, nothing behind. It's an Artlantis physical sky behind. And I would like to use an HDR image to simulate a kind of environment. So back to the perspective inspector. Let's go for let me deactivate the sun. Okay, because I would like to use the HDR to lead the scene, and I'm ready to go and search my HDR image from a certain folder, location. Here it is. It was added to the scene. Okay. You see, I have this plane which is should be here hidden. So let me hide this plan, because the whole environment, this car is placed in a part of a city. I will make the plan disappear. So this is my scene about. This is how it should look like. However, it's a bit cartoonish, it's a bit artificial, because I'm missing the shadows. I'm missing exactly the good shadows below the car that would make it credible that the car is really placed on that road. So I need the plan, because if I ask a refined preview, and as I showed you previously, Artlantis will recalculate the scene, refresh it, and we will have the shadows below the car which appear only on the plan. But I would like to make appear on the image and make the plan disappear. And this is the purpose of this matte shadow shader. And you see it has a kind of ghost appearance in the catalog. So I drag and drop it over my plan. That will make disappear the plan. So I need a refreshment of my preview again to have the complex lighting from the background, which is the HDR, and the shadow. So the shadow from the plan is kept and will be applied on my view, and now my scene becomes very credible already. I have the shadows, I have this 3D feeling, and the scene turns very realistic. This is the matte shadow about. Something new, another feature to show you, and it's almost the last one, is the site insertion. Artlantis already knew to insert a 3D model into a background image very simply. As you can see in this slide, I already have an example. So this is an old situation, and this new building replaces this old building. And that can be done only through graphical tools. So let me show you an example. I have a 3D building. This is a model. To the perspective inspector. Okay. So this is a 3D model, a new building, and I would like to simulate it in this new site. And for this I need a background image that was taken on a corner of a street where this building will be built. So let's go for a photo, and this photo will be used on its full size. I will even force the preview to be stretched according to the proportions of this background image, in front of which I have this 3D building. And what I'm looking now is to replace this ugly building, this old little building, and simulate this model in its future site, in fact by finding the position of the photographer and applying it to the model. And for this reason I will use the site insertion tool. The palette was completely reorganized and become more simple than previously. So the idea here is to set an XYZ coordinate system on a background. To place it, I'm just dragging the origin now. And the same to do on a 2D image, and Artlantis will overlap them together. So just to set the XYZ coordinate on the on this background. I'm not setting the axis, I'm setting guidelines for the axis this time. These dashed lines, which can be grabbed anywhere on the surface of the image, and that makes me very easy to detect the best positions where I can easily find the directions toward the vanishing points. So let me drag for the x-axis. I'm just using, for example, this walkway. Here it is. Good. A little bit like this. The z coordinate will find the vertical direction, if I'm correct. There is an additional help, which is the horizon. So if I'm fine, I can even hide the model to have a clear visibility of my scene, so the guidelines can be just managed if I need more. And the same thing should be done on the 2D window. And in fact, it's the first time I'm opening now the 2D window. As you see, that shows the model in all projection modes. And here too, I need to set the position of the coordinate system in all views. Check out the height for the origin. It's fine. Okay. It's well done. The origin is in the same corner. The position of the axis is similar to what I have in the preview. And now I need to set the size. So which X will help me more to detect a size and help Artlantis to find the correct sizing? I believe is the y-axis. So here is the length of the facade. I can easily detect in the preview window. I have even a magnifier glass. I'm just rolling the mouse wheel. The magnifier glass can be opened and then drag this yellow dot to point the same distance as I already detected in the 2D window. And when I'm ready, I make the model appear again and start the calculation. And Artlantis will overlap these two coordinate systems set in the 2D window and in the 3D window and refine the position of the photographer in a moment he took his photo and apply it to the model. I can fine-tune my model a little bit if I need it. And if I'm ready, I stop the calculation, say OK, I'm ready. The scene will be refreshed immediately in global illumination. I can adjust the lighting if I need. It's quite correct. But I'm missing some parts of the background image I would like to keep in a foreground. So let me then apply a foreground image again. And I will look for the same background image I'm using, which is an average JPEG. It means it doesn't have any transparency. So whenever it appears in the foreground of my scene, nothing will, it will mask completely my model. So I need to set a bit of transparency to it. And I can do it right inside of Artlantis through a very simple, easy to use tool, which is called Alpha Mask Editor. So here I have my JPEG, and I can make, with very few tools, as you see, a selection. And I can define which I would like to hide, to make transparent, or to keep. And let me go for the front side. I make the selection to a line, and I draw a line. And you may say, she's crazy. Yeah, she's drawing here something. Anything. And I will do the same for the background. Just roughly a kind of borderline. I will show Artlantis that I would like to keep this gentleman here. Okay, let's go, close the line. And in this moment, Artlantis will detect the image and the contrast part of the image, and I can even complete my transparency. I can fine-tune. The gentleman should be capped. Okay, I need his head here. Good, fine. And when I'm ready, I validate, and the same image with the transparency will be applied for as a foreground. Okay, I have the gentleman, and I have already some elements from the background image in a foreground, and all this was done inside Artlantis with this very funny alpha editor tool. I finished my presentation. I presented you all of the novelties of Artlantis 6. I still have to show you some nice examples just to show you what really can be calculated with Artlantis 6, of course. So these images were done by the alpha, beta testers, not alpha testers, beta testers they were. This scene was set with a neon shader, for example. This scene has only neon shader, and it was calculated in the same time as if they were artificial lights, because this new engine handles the neon shader with the same ease as any artificial light. So there is no time difference in calculation. That's a very important point for all those of you struggling with the neon shader in the previous versions. This scene also was calculated with neons, and you see there are beautiful textures, great, very nice, very realistic images can be achieved with this new physical engine of Artlantis 6. The scene, the light here has an IES profile added, so the lamp now it's very realistic, even more realistic than previously. This is a scene that has an HDRI background, only an HDRI background, and one of our key users during the beta test, he uploaded his image and he was very satisfied because not only the light was applied from this HDRI, but also the color of the light or the color of the background image was added to the scene and made the scene very rich in terms of colors and saturation. Some tests for materials. The leather, the metallic surface are very nice with this engine. As you see, the ambient occlusion. So this is a situation where the ambient occlusion will enhance very much and put in evidence these reliefs of the wall on the walls. And this is my last rendering to present you. This is a key image. In fact, if you go artlantis.com, you will see this image on a front page of Artlantis. We are very proud of the realism of these images and about the results or during the beta test our key users achieved with Artlantis. So thank you very much. I encourage you to download the demonstration from our website. Check out Artlantis 6. During the demo period, you have access to all of the features, and it is fully functional during 30 days, sorry, only 30 days. So thank you, and now I'm looking forward to your questions.
Yes, hi, Ildiko, that was great. These images are worth 1,000 words. I'm speechless. And you've got great feedback throughout the presentation. Everybody's really excited. And you just talked about...
oh, I'm so happy.
Yes, you just talked about the demo. And somebody's asking, Somebody who downloaded the demo is saying, on the second inspector,
Yes.
the image quality is very poor. I've seen it on Artlantis 5, and there it was much better. How can that be solved?
Second inspector?
Yes.
I'm not.
I don't know. I'm not sure what it
maybe
means.
I do not understand very well the question.
Okay. So,
I think something should be noted with Artlantis 6. The rendering, the system requirements. So
2D inspector, he says.
2D inspector.
Yeah.
Yes, maybe. 2D window, I suppose.
I think
2D
so.
window.
Yes,
Then,
that's what he said.
yes,
That's what he means.
Okay, then I know. I think I understand now the question. The OpenGL you set for the preview will be applied for the 2D window as well. And this can be changed in this Artlantis preferences. You have several options for the OpenGL, and I think this is the question about, because by default is set to colors, and then it makes difficult to orientate yourself in the 2D window. But you can change this either to wireframe, either to hidden lines, either to color simply, or simply color mixed with wireframe. So there are multiple options for this OpenGL, which is the display mode for the 2D window. So please check the preferences and change your settings there.
Great. Somebody's asking if everything, all these new features, will be available in both render and the studio version, or there are some that will be present only in one of the two.
Okay. All I showed you here are present in both versions because they concern, first of all, the rendering engine, and all the features around the rendering engine are can be used in Artlantis Render as well as Artlantis Studio. In Artlantis Studio, this new rendering engine will calculate the panoramas, will calculate the VR objects and animation. So this is the difference. The presentation modes are which are available in Artlantis Studio. But all of the features I showed you so far concern, first of all, the engine, and even the productivity tools, the drop functions, the way we set instances were the same in Artlantis Render and Artlantis Studio as well.
That's great news. Okay, now the next question is, when I decide, somebody's saying, when I decide to buy Artlantis, I will need to change my Mac for better performance. What specs are the best?
Please check out, right on the top of the download page of Artlantis.com, you have the rendering, the system requirement, just speaking rendering all the time. So the system requirements for Artlantis 6. And Artlantis 6, this new engine requests a bit more computer power, so the and a more powerful graphic card compared to what we had in Artlantis 5. All this, if you go for the suggested values and parameters, then you will have even a smoother workflow with Artlantis.
Cool.
So please check out the system requirements. Very important. Yes.
Yes. And speaking of panoramas, animation, and VR objects, somebody's asking, are there any improvements to mention about these things? I know you won't be able to demo, but is there something you can talk about?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
They were kept the way they worked previously, so there are no changes for panoramas and animations and VR objects. So the iVisit, the integration of iVisit was done already in version 5 of Artlantis and was taken over in version 6 without adding any modification. The same is for animation, yes.
All right, cool.
So there is no changes.
Okay, so still working as well as ever. Okay, well, that was a wonderful, I'm telling you, the feedback was fantastic. And I think everybody's itching to get their hands on Artlantis 6, and I hope they come and visit Novage. I will have to, you know, take out down this image and switch to my screen. I apologize for that. I know it's not as exciting, but I have to say goodbye and thank everybody for attending. And I want to remind everyone to visit our webpage at novage.com, where you will find Artlantis 6 for both Windows and Mac. And Novage is the best way to buy design software online. So, you know, just give it a try, and you've seen what Artlantis 6 can do. So it was very exciting webinar. Also visit the Novage blog and take a look at Novage social network, you know, Facebook, Twitter, Google+, we're everywhere. And I want to remind everyone that our next webinar will be on Rhino and V-Ray together, with an engagement ring prototype and render. And to watch today's webinar or previous one, check out our Novage YouTube and Vimeo channels. The recording of today's presentation will be up as soon as a couple of hours. So thanks again for joining us, and thank you so much, Ildiko, for a fantastic tutorial, and best of luck with Artlantis 6. Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.